Hey, we are recording. I'm going to mute myself and everything, Christopher. You can take over, and then when you're ready to start
All right.
the the movies, I will start.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Well, welcome to the second annual Vibrational Astrology Conference. Exciting. I mean, we finally have an actual annual one now. So, again, this has been a year in the planning. Immediately at the end of the last conference, because of the success of that conference, the next one was already in the works. And your presenters have been working since that time and preparing for this conference, for the lectures they're going to be giving. So it's really an exciting time. It's been a big year for vibrational astrology that really is growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, it is just expanding constantly. The amount of emails that David's getting, both he and Faye, on vibrational astrology have just been growing and growing and growing. So it's been very exciting in that way. There's also the starting of a vibrational association, or vibrational astrologers association is in the works and getting started. And then also the certification program is also something that is going to be starting here as well, and everything is in the works for that. So this is a very exciting time of expansion. You know, getting down to the detail of things and expanding. So we're definitely hitting the energy of the time, and vibrational astrology is really leading in that way. So tonight we're going to go through some introductions, and we're going to have a nice video that plays to introduce everybody. So David, if you're ready, we can start the introduction.
Okay, looks
Okay.
like Christopher, we're getting some people are not seeing it at all, and some people are getting the whole effect. So we're not having 100% success here. Um, I'm not sure. People are saying nothing.
It's getting interrupted by late arrivals.
Uh,
Oh, okay.
no,
Yeah, I think also people need to download the app.
yeah, I think half the people are getting nothing. Half are getting it, half are
Yeah,
not.
they have to be on
Uh,
the app.
How do they download the app?
When they log in as registered user, and then there's an option to download the app. But guests, there's no option. So many of them are guests.
Okay. Yeah, some people it was perfect.
We can just move forward and finish it up.
Okay, we'll go. All right.
Also,
I guess we'll just
by late arrivals.
Yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with this not working for people. So, okay, I guess we will just continue to play these. There's about 7 or 8 little videos. They are beautiful, they're gorgeous, they're exciting. But if you can't see them or hear them, it's going to all be recorded and you'll get it later. So,
yeah.
Sorry, worked perfectly in all of our tests and not working for everybody. So, okay, I'll start the next video. See what happens. Oh, by the way, Christopher, maybe you need to mute yourself. I hear you once in a while.
Okay, that was Giselle. So Giselle isn't with us this evening, but she will be here in the morning, and she will be giving 2 sessions over the weekend. So we're really looking forward to her talks. If anybody was here last year, she gave a talk as well, and it was really amazing. Just the detail that she gets into is something that I think everybody will really enjoy. So I think we are having some problem with the Adobe system. I know I got thrown out of the room too. So we'll just have to try to make do. The system seems to be overtaxed by not just us, but everybody that's using it. So.
Yeah, I'm going to try something here, Chris. I'm going to try doing the next video probably without sound, so at least you see the video. Let's give this a try. I'm going to do a different approach to this. You can see my screen right now, right? Let me go ahead and go to...
We can see.
Oh no, I don't see the videos on my computer. Oh darn.
It's there. It's there.
Maybe I'll do the whole thing.
Yeah, that one.
I'm going to run VA. I'm going to run this whole thing so at least we can watch it. Let's see what happens. I think we're going to have no sound.
Just move the space bar.
Well, that seemed good. I
Yes.
can see and hear that.
All right, Chris.
We're just
All
going to play it. We'll play it all straight through, and then we'll.
Guys will meet him next year. Hey, Clarissa. All right, Bill.
Yay, Faye!
Thanks. Hey, Chris. Yeah. Introduce David now.
Awesome video.
All right.
We did it.
All
Wow.
right. Yes.
It worked.
I am so grateful. I'm so grateful that we finally got to share that with you guys.
Woohoo!
Okay.
All right. So this was a little different than originally planned, but are we wanting to have you speak now, or are we wanting to have Clarissa and Bill say something
Yes.
Yeah,
real
why don't
quick.
we have Clarissa and Bill just say hi to everyone? Yep.
Okay. Yeah, Clarissa, why don't you get your mic on there? This is Clarissa Dolphin, and she's going to be your speaker over this weekend and everything.
Hey everybody. Can you guys see me too? No? Okay.
We see
Okay,
you.
awesome. Well, I'm so excited to be here with you all. You know, my peers, my colleagues, students, strangers, just all to, you know, share our love for vibrational astrology and check out all the cool new stuff. Because this year, you know, the research projects, lunar nodes, quincunx, mine, those are mine, but everybody's research projects are ridiculous in expanding what we already know. So it's ultimate excitement, and it's like the best little journey away from the pandemic. So thank you for having me, and I can't wait to be with you all over the weekend.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Clarissa. So you can already see that Clarissa is a really mild-mannered, very low-key type of person that doesn't get too excited about anything. Okay? So, no, we're really excited for Clarissa and everything that she's doing. She just brings a real enthusiasm to anything she does, and she is extremely enthusiastic about vibrational astrology. So I know her sessions are going to be amazing. So if we could also get Bill, are you there? If you can get that mic and introduce yourself as
I
well.
think Bell is logged in as guest again. We have to find them.
Yeah, he ended up getting booted out and coming back in. Well, if we can't get Bill, that's okay. You guys know Miss Fay is going to be speaking, and I think maybe we can head right into the lecture, Chris. What do you think?
Okay. All right. Yes. All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here. This is going to be a really exciting conference, and we're going to get it started off tonight with David, who's going to be our speaker this evening, and he's going to give this introduction to a new astrology for a new decade. And this has been more than a decade in the making. So why don't we just sit back and enjoy David.
All right. Thank you, Christopher. Okay. And by the way, we already mentioned that Giselle has some emergency clients. She's always extremely busy, and with the pandemic and everything. So, but she will be here speaking first thing in the morning. And I think she's going to be able to make it for the whole day tomorrow, and Sunday morning she speaks again. Okay, my friends, I'm so glad you got to experience that that movie, I'll call it, because it conveys the heart and soul of vibrational astrology, the magic, the wonder, the beauty, the elegance of the universe in which we live and the ways in which we are now understanding it astrologically. It's just so totally awesome. What else can I say? So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to share with you a little bit about my personal journey and where vibrational astrology comes from. It's a little bit out of character. I'm not fond of talking about myself, but I decided I think now's the time to share a little bit about where the heck did this stuff start up. And I hope you find this interesting. All right, guys? Okay, are we good? You all hear me? You see my screen? Right? Just want to double check again. Okay, all right, looks like we're cool. All right, and we're going to go to about 9 o'clock. We'll have some time for questions and answers and sharing and so on. All right, let's have some more fun here. A short personal story of the development of vibrational astrology. Okay, where the heck did VA come from? There were several steps that preceded this, but a major beginning of vibrational astrology was when I was 20 years old. So I was born in 1949. This was around 1969. when I found out that Carl Jung practiced astrology. That blew my mind. Carl Jung had dramatically changed my life a year earlier. I had been reading him for several years, and my whole understanding of what life is and what people are was transformed by him. And he was my great guru and just mentor for how life works. And when I read that he practiced astrology, it's not just a projection of mythic stories onto the sky. This was mind-blowing. And I had to find out more about it. So what I had learned from Jung, just to make this a little bit clear, because we all know about the archetypal stories and the Great Mother and these myths, but when I studied Jung, I came to realize that everything we're doing in life, or almost everything, is living out a myth. And very often we take those myths literally, and then we fight over the literal story, when actually what's happening is we spend 8 hours of our lives asleep thinking in images, in myths and stories, and they continue into our life. And I began to realize, as I read more and more of his works, that everything is a myth, that Jesus, for example, is a myth. All the stories are myths. There's some kind of eternal story of our soul. And then when we hear the songs of Christmas or the songs and stories of Jesus' life, we get strong visceral reactions. Some of us can't stand it because we're aware of the wars, we're aware of the conflicts, we're aware of how people have taken these mythic stories that live forever in our hearts and objectified them and made them literal. And then we go to war over them. And every person has to come to terms with these eternal stories of the soul and make peace with them. And I don't know if you will hear this or not. Do you hear this corny little kid singing a Christmas tune? Nothing very great, nothing very profound, nothing very talented. But she's singing an eternal story of the soul. Okay? Yeah, have it low. So my point is, I'll stop it, is that no matter what reaction we have, these stories are so gripping, so powerful, because they are ancient stories of who we are. So when I found out that Jung, who had taught me how to understand what's going on in life, practiced astrology and believed that it actually worked, it amazed me. By the way, according to Jung, without myth, there is only boredom. Okay. So, towards the end of his life, Carl Jung worked closely with leading physicist Wolfgang Pauli to synthesize psychology and physics. So I found out that this passion that I have to take Jungian psychology and somehow marry it in a completely seamless way with astrology and physics, I didn't know that that was already Jung's dream. And I didn't find out till decades later that towards the end of his life, his vision was to create an understanding of everything where physics, mysticism, astrology, and psychology are one. And that's what we're doing in vibrational astrology, is carrying on that work of Jung. I didn't know I was carrying it on till I found out later that what I'm doing was built in the model of what he was doing. So it's interesting, right? Do you guys follow me? We think of Jung as psychology, psychology, myth, myth, myth. Did you know the end of his life, his dream was to integrate totally with physics? There is one reality. And he was working with the greatest physicists of the time. Also, I later found out through my great friend and great friend of some of you as well, astrologer Dennis Harness, that there was a correspondence between Carl Jung and B.V. Raman, the great astrologer in India who had brought Indian astrology to the West. And Jung had ordered Raman's magazine called the Astrological Magazine. And Raman wrote Jung and asked him about his interest in astrology. And I want to read this letter from Carl Jung. This is the actual typed letter to B.V. Raman, because I think it's profound. And it also is part of the history behind vibrational astrology and the shoulders that our work is built on. So this is Carl Jung responding to Professor Raman, the Vedic astrologer. Dear Professor Raman, I haven't yet received the Astrological Magazine, but I will answer your letter nevertheless. Since you want to know my opinion about astrology, I can tell you that I've been interested in this particular activity of the human mind since more than 30 years. As I am a psychologist, I'm chiefly interested in the particular light the horoscope sheds on certain complications in the character. In cases of difficult psychological diagnosis, I usually get a horoscope in order to have a further point of view from an entirely different angle. I must say that I very often found that the astrological data elucidated certain points which I otherwise would have been unable to understand. From such experiences, I formed the opinion that astrology is of particular interest to the psychologist, since it contains a sort of psychological experience which we call projected. This means that we find the psychological facts, as it were, in the constellations. This originally gave rise to the idea that these factors derive from the stars, whereas they are merely in a reflection of synchronicity with them. I admit that this is a very curious fact which throws a peculiar light on the structure of the human mind. What I miss in astrological literature is chiefly the statistical method by which certain fundamental facts could be scientifically established. Hoping that this answer meets your request, I remain yours sincerely, C.G. Jung. Breathtaking, isn't it? Actual communication, the actual letter. And what we see here in Jung, which is also the same in vibrational astrology, is that there is no difference between the mystic, the scientific, the statistical, the psychological, the astrological, the synchronistic. There is a reality, and there's no conflict between using statistics. In fact, it is what he chiefly misses to understand how astrology works. And this is the tradition of vibrational astrology, it's all God. Everything is the force. Everything is working through all parts of creation. And we have these different lenses into it, whether it's intuition or a statistic or whatever it may be. There is this great mystery that becomes unraveled through all of these tools and all of these ways. So my dream is to fulfill the dream of Carl Jung, which is that we understand the specifics, the details, not just our intuition, not just what we assume to be true, but we solve this mystery of what is astrology. I started with Carl Jung, and I didn't realize until I had learned more about him over the decades how closely vibrational astrology is walking the path set by Carl Jung. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so I'm just giving you some of the history and background and my understanding of how we got to where we are. Now, so one turning point was finding out that Carl Jung thought astrology actually works and that it gives objective information. This blew my mind, and I became obsessed with wanting to know what astrology is. The next turning point happened 2 years later at 22 years of age, was specifically in September 1972. And what happened in September 1972 was I had gotten books that I borrowed from friends, the Ephemeris Table of Houses. I read the books, figured out how to calculate charts, did all this stuff, the way we did way back in 1972, and I started doing charts of people. And what happened is one night in 1972, I was living in a tent in the woods near Gainesville, Florida, in a town called Alachua. So I was living in a tent. I had no running water or electricity. I took a shower outside the neighbor's house because he had an outdoor shower. By the way, it gets cold here in the winter, so that was challenging. And I lived in a tent, I'm not very proud to say, for actually many years. And in September 72, some people were having a party out in this wooded area in Alachua, and a boy, a friend, and a girlfriend were having a big argument, and the guy was telling his girlfriend that he wanted to keep traveling. He didn't want to stop. He wanted to travel, and see all of the United States. And I was listening to him and I'm thinking, this guy's a jerk. Just let him go. He's a wandering never-do-well. And she was saying, no, I like Gainesville. I like this area we're in. I want to go back to college. And I'm thinking, good for you. Do what you need to do. In a break in their argument, I got their birth information. They both knew their birth time. I ran back to my tent and I calculated their charts. He had almost every planet in Sagittarius. I had found out I had no Sagittarius. I found out that he perfectly described the Sagittarian life, and I quickly deduced that I was biased by my lack of understanding of somebody who was built different from me. So I learned something about the limits of my own awareness then, and the obsessions began that night and never stopped. So those are two influences that happened in the development of vibrational astrology. Let me tell you about a third influence, which was happening at around the same time, which is the I Ching. So from about 20 years old to 22 years old, I used the I Ching at least once every few weeks. And I studied it. It was part of my study of Carl Jung and all the kinds of things he was working on, one of which was the I Ching. And I practiced the I Ching in a meditative way. So I had sticks, and I would be very quiet, and I would separate them out, and I would try to attune to this kind of Taoist flow of life. This was something very new and very mysterious, but I pursued it. And we're going to find out later that the I Ching becomes the basis for how we interpret planets, zodiac signs, and houses in vibrational astrology. It is directly straight out of the I Ching. That's what formulated it, and when I started doing astrology, that was the basis for it. Not because I thought the I Ching was better than anything else, it's that my mind had become programmed to this Taoist way of thinking. And the wisdom of the I Ching, I became essentially a Taoist. And I practiced it very regularly. And when I did the astrology, because my mind worked that way, I transferred I Ching thinking to the astrology. Maybe that's wrong, maybe that's right, but that's what happened. So I'm sharing with you some of the secret history of vibrational astrology. I have never told anybody these details ever before. Okay? So here it is. Some of the stuff that really happened that nobody knows about. Okay, now my first 25 years, I've gotten the courage to talk about myself, which I would not do for decades, and that's why I'm sharing this. The first 25 years or so in astrology for me was a roller coaster ride, and I want to share with you some of this. You all with me? Everything good? I think this is all simple. Okay. All right. There I am. I think some of you are up there. I think I see Richard and Sam up there. Bad joke. So there I am on the roller coaster ride of astrology. And I'll explain what I mean by roller coaster ride. Yeah, Tony's up there. I could see her screaming. And there we are coming down the roller coaster. I'll explain in a minute what I mean by this metaphor and why astrology was a roller coaster ride. But for some people, astrology is a merry-go-round. They just go round and round on the merry-go-round. It never was for me. I never was on the merry-go-round. I was on the scary roller coaster ride. Well, in a minute, I will explain what I mean by your astrology path being on a merry-go-round versus my path, which has been the roller coaster ride. Now, let me explain the life on the merry-go-round, okay? And then I'll tell you about my life on the roller coaster. Way back in those 1970s, I was studying astrology. I met an astrologer who was on the merry-go-round. She charged $50 for a reading, probably about $250 by today's numbers. Her husband worked in the medical field. She went to various New Age retreats. She also happened to love American football. She did quite a bit of traveling with her husband. They were planning to go to Paris the next month. She was a happy person living a constructive, positive, and successful life. Not everyone on the merry-go-round is as fortunate as she was. And she was, by my view, quite normal and a happy person who happened to be an astrologer. Symptoms of being on a merry-go-round. Does this describe you? You are interested in the following topics, but they do not excessively worry you. You don't lose sleep over it. Life goes on. Questions like which house system works best? Do you use Placidus houses, Koch houses, equal houses, whole sign houses? Does it bother you? Does it get under your skin that we don't know which house system works? Or maybe you're just content that astrology is a mystery and whatever works for you is fine. If you're of the attitude that whatever works for you or you is fine, or someday somebody will figure it out, or I don't need to worry about that, I'm able to help my clients, you are on the merry-go-round. You just enjoy it, no stress, nothing scary. It'll all sort itself out in the end. Tropical versus sidereal. Maybe you don't lose sleep over it. Maybe you don't worry about it. Maybe you don't worry that the majority of astrologers are sidereal astrologers, because the majority of astrologers are in India. What's going on? How can their system be useful and ours be so totally different and also be useful? Are these just languages? What the heck is going on? If it doesn't really bother you and you figure it's fine, I work with what I work with, you're on the merry-go-round. I was never on the merry-go-round because I had this burning and still have this burning passion that I have to find out what astrology is. Nothing nice and whitewashed and politically correct. I want to know what the heck astrology is, and I'll find out if it kills me. I don't know why. It's just what happened. You all following me? I'm not proud of this. I'm not bragging about it. I'm just sharing what happens and what goes on. Okay? So, Vedic versus Hellenistic versus modern, do these things bother you? That astrology obviously works when we use it with our clients, but nobody has demonstrated this in an objective way? Is it divination? Is science too weak to figure it out? And also that if astrology works, as Carl Jung believed, it represents the biggest revolution in the social sciences that has ever occurred in modern times. Maybe that doesn't take your breath away. So we're all built differently. And again, I'm not bragging, I'm not beating up on myself. I just wanted to share with you where vibrational astrology comes from. Even when I was in high school, I had almost no interest in money, cars. I wanted to know what happens when you're dead. That was the most important thing to me. I had to find out what happens when we're dead. I had to find out where numbers come from, why the square root of 2 is not clearly defined on a number line. I had to find out what the heck is going on, and I practiced from high school being aware that I'm on a ball of dirt and rock going around the sun, trying to understand the reality that I'm in. It's the only thing that interests me. Does that make sense? Okay, so I live only in my ideas. As a child, I did not bond very well with my environment. I was very good at sports. I had lots of friends. We played sports, but I couldn't care less about much of anything except what the heck is life about. And physics was one doorway into it, mystical poetry another doorway into it, anything I could get my hands on. One theory that my older brother has is that because we were not guided by our parents and that we were left to our own devices, he said what happened is you just went off. I wasn't bound to anything. And I just went off, unhinged, to try to figure out life, whereas most people are perfectly happy. They get up in the morning, what's there to figure out? So I suppose this is intellectualism taken to an extreme. And it's led to bouts of being concerned I'm going mad. And in the past 3 years, I've been very, very sane and not too concerned about it. But it's been a periodic concern that I'm actually going mad. So this is some of the stuff that has led to VA. Okay, I don't share this stuff normally. So, on the merry-go-round, we enjoy learning about different astrological theories. We find it endlessly fascinating. We have an intuitive trust that many questions we have today will eventually be answered. In the meantime, we know that our clients are being helped. I think there's a great spiritual strength and trust among people on the merry-go-round. I'm very impressed by it. I don't seem to have it. Okay. You all following me? Okay. So, life on the roller coaster and the merry-go-round, Both situations often, now I'm going to lighten things up with some dry humor here, often start with an acute attack of a disease known as astrologitis. And I think a good number of us here are suffering from astrologitis. Even a very mild case of astrologitis inclines one to purchase astrology books that you know you will never have time to read. And you may not be able to afford to buy them. You simply cannot resist getting them. So I find that this is a pervasive disease of astrologers, whether you're on the merry-go-round, whether you're on the roller coaster, or a little bit of both, our fascination never ends. Okay, I think a lot of us, Thaddeus says over 1,000 books later, Maria says, I've got this bad. So there are some things that tie us all together, regardless of whether on the merry-go-round or the, whatever path we're on, or the roller coaster. This is what often happens. Other symptoms of astrologitis: suddenly getting bored at a party because nobody speaks the astrology language, and you want to get back to all those unread books at home. Has it happened to any of you? This is astrologitis. It's why we're here together. It's why we go to various conferences. We're just passionate about astrology in whatever way it happens. And it's so beautiful for us to be together at a conference and learn about our fellow astrologers and the path that they're on and how they got to where they are and what they are sharing. So I'm sharing where I've come to. It's just one astrologer's journey. Now here's a severe case of astrologitis, which I've suffered from my entire adult life. Going into poverty to be involved in astrology nonstop rather than keep a good paying job and a secure job. This only occurs with severe attacks of astrologitis. So I've suffered from this extreme case for 48 years. Luckily, I no longer live in poverty, which I did for 8 years. Well, actually, I say here for the first 15 years, depending on what you consider to be poverty. But extreme poverty for 8 years. But I never felt like it was poverty. I got to interview people and try to figure out if astrology works. What greater wealth is there? And that's the extreme case. You don't even care, because you're getting to try to figure out astrology, the real wealth. Possible causes of astrologitis: reading an astrology book. Warning, this can be dangerous. The illness develops more gradually from reading an astrology book and then another astrology book and another and another and another. So there should be warning labels on astrology books. This could be dangerous to your emotional well-being. I know some astrologers developed astrologitis trying to disprove astrology. That was not the case for me. But that's another way to get a severe attack of astrologitis. And there is the middle way, where you're interested in all these different questions about house systems and midpoints and Hellenistic and classical astrology, willing to accept that we simply don't have all of the answers. You trust your intuition, you accept life as it is, and you sometimes go wild trying to figure something out, and you vary from being on the merry-go-round to the roller coaster. The middle way may be the best way. I, unfortunately, have not been able to follow it. Even my dreams are dominated by astrological themes. I wake up almost every morning with ideas in astrology. I sometimes dream astrology. It's the most common thing I dream about, and it's a mystery that's consumed my entire adult life. In the past 20 years, many of the unresolved questions have been answered. And so I'm no longer really on a roller coaster ride, because after decades of trying to sort everything out, it's all fitting together. Okay. Just sharing a story. Now, just to make this clear, from 1972 to 1981, I lived on the property of other people at no expense, first in a tent and then in a little cabin. And so for several years I lived without running water or electricity. I read hundreds of astrology books. I learned spherical astronomy, computer programming. I got access to the university computer. I lived in semi-seclusion. I was pretty darn weird. And the roller coaster ride may sound romantic, but the ups and downs are challenging. Now, Sue here, Sue Hanbury, she was one of my students back in the days. She remembers the cabin. Sue, I was weird. Maybe a bit of a genius, but weird. As I've gotten older, I think I've, at least look a little more normal. So, anyway, I was a fruitarian, living out in the woods, didn't eat cooked food. I was way, 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 way out there. Okay. But spent all my time trying to figure out astrology. Feeling sorry for myself because I didn't have teachers to explain things to me, and I had to try to keep figuring it out on my own. So here's where I lived from 1972 to 1981. I living like a mad sadhu for 8 years. This is what the land looks like. The original plan was to have the live conference here, and on Monday afternoon I was planning to drive you guys out there. But vibrational astrology was born, developed, and created out in these woods. This building is called the Temple of the Universe, run by my good friend Mickey Singer. He built this temple. I lived in a little cabin on Mickey's land next to it. They just let me live there. Okay. Dane Rudhyar, so many people were huge influences. Many of the ideas of vibrational astrology also come directly out of Dane Rudhyar and other astrologers. So this is what it looks like. It used to just be a dirt road. Now it's been paved. It leads out into this wooded area. There's more of the little road. This is what the temple looks like inside. This is Mickey Singer's temple. And I would go there on Sunday mornings. And there's my good friend Mickey Singer with Oprah Winfrey. So he became very famous and is friends with people like Oprah Winfrey, and he's written some books on spirituality. Just a very, very dear friend. And if you ever meet him, he'll love to tell you stories about how crazy I was in those days. Only Mickey knows how crazy I was. There I am. So this is, actually I don't look too mad in this. I think I look pretty darn normal. So there I am in Alachua. This is the house that was next to my cabin where I would shower outside the house. And I have my computer printouts. I was programming in Fortran and COBOL on the university computer all weekend. And then I would interpret and analyze and interview people all week. It's a spiritual New Age community, so you can see my friend's house has all of the kinds of imagery, and I still live that kind of lifestyle. Pretty cool, right? Some people say that I look like Robert De Niro. That's interesting. Clarissa, you're not the first person to say that. Very interesting. Okay, I don't know. We're both Italian Americans. Hey, what do you want? Okay. Here's the I Ching, the hexagrams, and it was the idea of the moving flow of life, the broken lines, the attunement to the natural flow. And I then developed the idea that each planet is regulating some natural flow, and all of the archetypal images are at a secondary level. So there's some detailed philosophy behind vibrational astrology. But anyway, I just thought I would, there it is. Big influence on vibrational astrology. Now, just for fun, I'm going to share some close encounters with famous astrologers. That's basically the story I wanted to share. And now I'm going to tell you some funny little stories along the way, okay, that I think you'll find interesting. So this is just a personal story of where vibrational astrology came from and some of the experiences I had. So close encounters with famous astrologers. One of the first astrologers I became very close with was Neil Mickelson. Oh, some of you may know who Neil Mickelson is. There's a picture of him. In the mid-70s, I think, excuse me, I believe it was 1973 or 1974, it was very early on, Neil Mickelson was living in New York before he moved his operation out to San Diego, California, and I had programmed the meanings of midpoint structures on punch cards, and I had trouble getting software to run to calculate planets. I called up Neil, told him what I'm doing, and he said, I'll fly down, get your program running if you give me your interpretations. And I read some of the interpretations to him over the phone. They're my original interpretations. I said, sure, you can have them. He said, okay. So he flew down, excuse me, to Gainesville, Florida, spent one day in the computer room at the university, and he got the planetary calculations running. I gave him all of my punch cards, big, huge boxes of interpretations, also various calculations I had done that he had not programmed yet. I gave him all that stuff, and now I had a computer that I would feed in the date, time, place, latitude, longitude, time zone, and DST, and then it would calculate all the planets, all the harmonic charts, all the Vedic dashas, and all this kind of stuff. And Neil got it all running in one day. Interesting story, right? Interesting story. Neil and I were very, very close. Very close friends. Okay. Later on, when I decided I needed time zone and daylight saving time tables, many, many years later, in desktop software, I wrote to Neil and asked him if I could type in some of the tables from his books. He said, you can have them all. I said, Neil, you're too generous. What can I give you? He wrote back to me and said, nothing. I don't want any compensation. Welcome to the great entrepreneurial system. Some people say he might arguably be the only person who's more generous than I am. Doesn't seem to have a good sense of ownership in some ways. Okay. Neil died of prostate cancer. I think you might be thinking of I can't think of his name right now. I believe died of AIDS, but Neil did not die of AIDS. He died of prostate cancer. Okay. Okay. At least that's what he told me directly, personally. Okay. Anyway. So how did Neil contribute to VA, vibrational astrology? He assisted in the development of the software, helped get things going with software so we could calculate and move faster. He also set a good example to me of one of the finest human beings I've ever met. Not everybody agrees with that assessment, but that was my experience with Neil. Another person, fun stories, is Charles Jane. Charles Jane came down to Gainesville, Florida in the mid to late 70s. He gave workshops to my students and training. I had a lot of correspondence with Charles Jane, mostly by telephone. This is a nice picture of him when he's much younger. When I knew him, he was older, kind of more of a bloated face. He was not the most handsome guy in the world, I think it's fair to say. but he was like an accountant. It's hard to imagine how mystical he was. He looked like like somebody who spent their whole life in an office in New York City, which he did. And he was a big promoter of my work. He would brag about me and tell people that I was one of the most important astrologers of the next generation, which just irritated other people to no end. But anyway, he was a big believer in what I was doing. He respected me, and I just thought of myself as a beginner. I'd only been working a few years at this, and I was surprised at how supportive and enthusiastic he was about what I was doing. To me, he was like, another guru. I mean, he was just way fantastic. Yeah. So Sue, you remember the workshop with him, but you don't remember much about it. You just remember a little bit. Yeah. So a very unusual person. He was unique. He had tremendous expertise in astronomy. He was also crazy. He discovered new planets that had names like Midas and other things by his contact with enlightened beings. So he's a very complex person. He scoffed at astrologers who lacked technical expertise, which is most of them. He could be very direct, and he was not worried about hurting your feelings. The number of new ideas he developed was extraordinary, but he was unusual. Yeah, Eleanor Heseltine was one of his colleagues. He talked glowingly about her. I never met Eleanor Heseltine. So I don't know if anybody else did. Okay. How did he develop VA? What Charles did is through his lively, frank discussions, his endless insights, he just inspired me and got me excited. We would sometimes talk for hours on the phone, and he would yell at me. But I knew when he was yelling at me, he loved what I was saying. And one time I remember having an argument with him about some technicality of astronomy. And he said to me, "David, you know why I'm yelling at you?" I said, "No." He says, "Because I respect what you're saying. I only yell like this when I respect the other person." Another person that fun stories is Zip Dobbins. Zip also came to Gainesville and gave lectures to some of my students. Zip was very skeptical of my ideas that I had developed, unlike Charles, who was very enthusiastic. And she also thought it was a little pompous for somebody in their 20 years old to think that they're making new contributions to astrology. But over time, this became less important and got resolved. I was good friends with her son, Mark Pottinger, and she always appreciated that because we could understand each other on computer and technical stuff. Okay, but she did come to Gainesville and had some impact on things. Another person who had a big impact on vibrational astrology is Dane Rudhyar. This is a picture of him with his wife, Layla Rael. His book on Sabian symbols is a classic book. As you know, he interprets each degree of the zodiac. The original ideas came from a psychic, Elsie Wheeler, who worked with Mark Edmund Jones, and Rudhyar expanded and improved, you might say, these degree meanings, which became known as the Sabian symbols. And in Rudhyar's book on the Sabian symbols, he mentions a 5-degree cycle in the patterns of degree meanings. And I spent about a half a year comparing the meanings of degree meanings in various books to the Saptamsa sign, the 7 vibration sign, the 9 vibration sign. I looked at other vibrations, and after about a half a year of working on it, because remember I'm living in poverty and have nothing to do all day, zero, no responsibilities, nothing except to try to figure out astrology. People gave me donations of food, and I had a bicycle and I could get to the grocery store. And so I just spent all my time trying to figure this out. And after about a half a year, I felt like I had figured out where the Sabian symbols come from. Did we lose sound? Everybody good? Diana says no sound. Okay, we're good. Everybody hears me? Sound is good. Okay. Did I live off the grid? I had no electricity or running water for about 4 or 5 years. I guess you could call that living off the grid. I got water from the neighbor. He had an outdoor shower, and I would run water into a glass jar. Yeah. So I guess you could call it that. Then the last few years I got electricity. Okay. All right. So I had come up with what I thought I discovered where degree meanings come from. So remember that my whole approach to astrology and life is this obsession to understand it, to figure it out, that I have to understand what's going on. And where do these degree meanings come from? Why are there degree meanings? Is there a reason for it? And I felt like I had found the answer, that the vibrational signs create degree meanings. Nobody cares about these things. People just read the Sabian symbols, they read the symbol, they're happy with it, they go on with their life. I was not in the normal way of thinking, and I lived in mostly seclusion, so there was nobody to bring me back. And I'm thinking in a pragmatic, down-to-earth way, what the heck is going on? And I thought I discovered where degree meanings come from. So I sent a letter to Dane Rudhyar. Of course, this is pre-internet and all that. So I sent a letter to him and I explained what I had noticed and why I had thought I had found the basis of degree meanings. And a few weeks later, I received a letter back from Dane Rudhyar. There was a mailbox out on the street. I opened the mailbox, and there was a letter in the upper left corner, Dane Rudhyar, with his street address, and it was addressed to me. I think I nearly fainted, because Rudhyar was one of my greatest heroes. I read his books cover to cover. I actually understood them. They're very abstract. Many of the ideas in vibrational astrology are taken right out of his work, and I got a response from him. I was so excited, I think I was shaking. I opened the letter, and it was extremely disappointing. He hardly responded to my theory at all. He went off on tangents about Mayan mythology, which I had no idea what the heck he would bring this up for. He basically said, again, like other people said, that I'm too young, that I, give it some time and maybe with some maturity, I will have a richer understanding of the deep mythology of the soul. And that's basically what he said, and he didn't really respond to the specific ideas that I had. I was crushed, totally and absolutely crushed, because I believed in him like a child believes in somebody, and I was just totally confused. So I took his letter and I ripped it up and I threw it in the garbage. So that's an interesting story just to share with you. Also interesting is that one of my students became friends with Layla Rael, his wife, at an astrology conference. They spent a lot of time together. I was told that Rudyard was not happy about the close friendship of one of my students with Layla Rael, but I was not at the conference, and I just heard lots of stories about it. Maybe that's a little bit of gossip, but anyway, it's part of it. I had also emailed, no, there was no email. I sent a letter to Mark Emmon Jones, also about my discovery. He sent me a letter back as well, shortly after I received the one from Rudyard, and he just said something like, keep up the good work, this is very promising, I wish you very well. It was just as bad as the one I got from Dane Rudyard. I was already crushed from the one from Rudyard, so I didn't even care at this point, and I ripped it up and threw it away as well. Anyway, just fun stories about my journey. And so vibrational astrology, what is it? It has clear rules. We don't fudge things. We don't arbitrarily pick new ideas. It's based on fractal science, mysticism, and astrology are all integrated together. It is evidence-based in ways that other forms of astrology aren't. Where does the term vibrational astrology come from? It comes from astrologer Alexander Imzaragich. He's the one who came up with the term less than 10 years ago. Maybe Miss Fay remembers. Was it about 6 years ago? 7 years ago or so, we were having lunch. Oh, Fay recorded the date and the time. So Fay and I and Alexander's wife Leah were having lunch. And while lunch or dinner, I can't remember whatever time of day it was, and I said that I need a name for my system of astrology. And Alexander's very familiar with it because I've spoken many times to his group in Belgrade, Serbia. And without hesitation, I just said I need a name for my form of astrology. Without skipping a beat, Alexander said vibrational astrology. And I went, oh, that's it. That's obviously it. And so that's where the name comes from. The name has not been around for very long. But the people who do harmonic astrology and other forms of astrology are also very happy that we're distinguishing it with its own name. Anyway, another little fun story. Faye says about 7 years ago. Okay. All right. Now, last thing, I'm pretty much at the end of my story here. I hope you found this reasonably interesting. Is where are we now with VA? The community is growing very rapidly. We have 2 VA astrologers, Clarissa and Linda Berry. These are their website addresses, and they are teaching vibrational astrology online. I'm very proud of my exceptional students. They are every bit as good as I am, in some ways better, in some ways not as good. We're all different, but they are at the same level. We all learn from each other at this point. We have the annual conference, of course, and the vibrational astrology group will be starting soon at the conference closing on Sunday evening at 5 p.m. I think Linda, one of the group of members, is going to be sharing a little bit about the vibrational astrology organization and the certification exam that they are developing and working very hard at. So I'm not directly involved in all of that because it takes a team, and we are now a team, and I am not just the leader of the pack anymore. People are taking the initiative and building the certification exam, the vibrational astrology organization, the journal will be starting up, and so it's becoming a complete system of astrology with a global organization. And so we're expecting a lot of these things to be completed, probably some of it this year.
Don't forget to
so
announce
there'll be
the mini
more and
reading
more
as well.
information
It's
coming
still
out about it.
happening.
Vibrational astrology
Information is on the email
is
that I
happening.
sent for the VA
No end to it.
astrologers to give reading in between the 45 minutes break during the lecture.
Right. So Faye sent a
Yeah,
letter, an email, I think 2 days ago. You should have it. It has the information on the mini readings. I think we have 3 or 4 astrologers doing mini readings
yes,
during the
yes.
breaks. 4. Okay, 4 astrologers. And also if you're too busy during the weekend, they will do it after the conference as well. So again, these are all things that they are organizing and developing. So each one of us is contributing in different ways. The enthusiasm about vibrational astrology, the generosity, the excitement is through the roof because it's not me, it's not Linda, it's not Clarissa. It is vibrational astrology. And who happened to figure out what at what time is not so important. It's moving forward extremely fast. So that's it. Welcome to the 2020 VA conference. Let's see what time it is. It's 8:30. We have about a half hour left. So Christopher, I guess you could relay some thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed that. A little personal story and some of the hidden story, you might say, that I've never shared before about how we got here. And I hope I didn't talk too much about myself.
That was awesome, David. Thank you.
It's a big thing for me.
And I want to let everybody know too. It is hard for David to talk about himself, so he does not do that. I have never heard this story before, so I know for myself it was awesome. I'm really thankful to be able to hear more of the history and getting into the details and the very personal details as well of how VA has come to be and all part of the development there. I think it's fascinating. So I hope everybody enjoyed it because it really is laying the foundation, again, for everything we're going to be talking about this weekend, but what VA really is all about. And he's just demonstrating how rich a foundation this is and how long it has taken even to develop this system that is still continuing to grow and expand. Really, every month it just continues to grow and expand. So that was awesome. Again, thank you so much for that talk. I think we learned some new terms. I know everybody has a lot of fear around the world of the coronavirus, but now we know that there's something even more dangerous than the coronavirus, and that's the astrologists. Okay, so that's something that astrologers tend to get, So, and it seems like a lot of people here have caught that one. And I don't know, have they found a cure for that yet, David? Okay, so yeah, no cure for that yet. But again, hopefully VA is going to be able to help.
No, it's permanent.
And maybe let it be not quite so deadly. So that's there. Another thing, I guess everybody has to figure out whether they're on the roller coaster, the merry-go-round, or the middle way. So that's another thing that we have that we can take away from it, which is, again, it's neat. I'm sure that everybody was hearing themselves in the stories, and with all of our treks. I know for myself, once you start getting into this, I just think of Brer Rabbit, and getting into all the tar. And it's like the more you get into it, and there is no getting out of it. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. So
And Christopher, let me say one thing about the roller coaster ride and all that. The roller coaster ride is over. I would say in the last 15 to 20 years, it ended. And the end of it is that everything is fitting together now. We are getting the answers. For example, we are now clear on why there is a zodiac, at least the tropical zodiac. We know what creates it. We know what the foundation of it is. We know how it operates. Now, when I say we know, it's a model, so maybe I'm dreaming right now. I'm not sure I know anything. But when I say we know it, it all fits together so perfectly. The genesis of the zodiac, the genesis of houses, how they're part of physics, how they're part of mathematical modeling, how they function the way they do. All of this is now understood in great detail. So as you guys know, I've made, I think it's up to 340 YouTube videos, and in a lot of those videos, I explain the mathematics of this, and we are working with physicists, with mathematicians, to develop these ideas. They're not finding any holes in the theories, and everything fits together. So it's all making sense. Another thing that makes sense is that when we do the research with the database, it confirms what we see with our clients. So we're not getting this disconnect between what happens when we run the database with research and what happens when we see clients. It synthesizes, it agrees. And also, almost all of the new discoveries that we have with our research team are building consistently on previous ideas. We're not getting a lot of sudden contradictions. That could happen. We could start doing charts and the ideas just don't work and we find out that we're just off base. But it's not happening.
Wonderful. Well, again, that's wonderful for you and everybody else that's still on the roller coaster here. You just teased everybody with all these discoveries and all this knowledge. But, everybody's still waiting to hear it all. So, I mean, again, that's nice. But it's like we want to see this stuff brought out and done in even more detailed ways where everybody can get off that roller coaster then. So, and these things are coming too. So I know I'm just teasing with David a little bit here, but there's a lot more things that are being produced that are going to come out here in the very near future, which are going to show these things in more detail, where you can actually get things in your hand and start reading them and looking at them too. So did you want to open it up for some questions here just a little bit?
Yeah, I'd like to answer questions. One person asked if we're using quantum math. Let me answer that question. The mathematics that we currently use in vibrational astrology is extremely simple. We're not using even calculus, for example, which is fundamental to quantum mechanics. Most of the mathematics we are using is very simple. We are discovering new layers of the mathematical properties. Linda Berry is making huge discoveries in the intricacies of the golden ratio and how the golden ratio works as a kind of network through the astrology chart. And we're understanding certain things about the sacred geometry. So there's a professor of mathematics in Wisconsin and who has studied the videos on how Fibonacci numbers combined with spin create structures in space.
David, we also
they
have a
are
question
working
about
with these
John
ideas.
Addy and
but
the
right
Hindu,
now, the mathematics that we
charts.
use is extremely
Did any of these
simple.
influence the development
Nothing
of your
very
vision?
fancy. Yes, so one of the first forms of astrology that I studied is Indian astrology, because I'm on a path of Indian astrology. We mentioned in the introduction, I do the Kriya Yoga technique. So I'm very much a New Age guy who's into that kind of style of religion. It's just a path. It's just different styles for different people. So that naturally gravitated me to Indian astrology. I got all the books by B.V. Raman and all these other people, and I interviewed one person after another, and I could never make sense of Indian astrology. I could not get it to work. Most Indian astrologers will tell you that you will never get it to work. You must have a guru. You must have an Indian astrologer guru walk you through the process. I did have an astrologer from India who came every summer, and I studied with him, but it was not at the level of detailed training. So I don't know if that's the reason why or what happened, but I on my own, I could not make sense of most of Indian astrology. I think I needed to have a teacher. Now, John Addy is one of the biggest influences on vibrational astrology. I read all of his books multiple times. And in fact, one of the few things that I purchased was the Astrological Journal, published by, which had John Addy's work in it. And Peggy Lance, Peggy, are you here? I would see her name. She was one of the editors of the Astrological Journal. So it's great many years later to be in touch with some of the people. But John Addy's work is one of the very important foundations of vibrational astrology. So I read all of his books multiple times, studied them to the point where some of the pages were basically memorized, and applied it. And I found the basic concepts to work, but in the interviews, I interviewed thousands of people in the 1970s. I had to keep adjusting the ideas, the details, to fit what I was getting from the
There's another
interviews.
question here about your
But yes,
definition of
Indian
New
astrology
Age,
and
whether you mean
and
truth
John Addy's
from
work
the
are
secret
two
teachings
major
of all ages, or what were
influences,
you
along with
talking
many
about?
others. No, I'm not talking that specific or technical. I'm just talking about people who sit cross-eyed in the morning at 4 o'clock, chanting Om and breathing deep, and chanting Jainamane na Sadaguru Deva Hiniyana Namaha Sadaguru Deva Om Shri Namaha Namahan Jai Sadaguru Deva. So I sing, I eat, I live in a kind of world of that kind of music, and that's how I live. So, but it's nothing specific or technical or like I have some kind of secret wisdom or something. I did read tons of theosophy as well, but for me, it's a lifestyle. It's just some people like jazz music. This is just how I live. It's what makes sense to me. And so I'm just a typical New Age guy who eats lots of sprouts and meditates in the morning. That's all I mean. Nothing exotic or esoteric.
I don't know how typical.
Although I do have
but
repeated mystical experiences, but if you meditate as much as I do, I would hope you do. Something should happen.
All right. Are there any more questions out there then?
Yeah. I think I take it a little more.
All right. If we're not going to get any more questions, then I wanted to let everybody know that tomorrow morning it starts at 9 a.m. Or actually, yes, 9 a.m. East Coast time. And we'll be having Giselle Terry will be our opening speaker tomorrow. So you definitely don't want to miss that. We'll have a A break after that, it'll go to 10:15, and there'll be a break, and then we'll have an 11 to 12:15 session with Bill Meridian. So, and then after that will be lunch. So that's what we'll be looking at for the beginning of tomorrow. And let's see. Were there any more? I think, Faye, did you have any announcements as far as book sales or T-shirts or anything like that?
Not on book sales and T-shirts yet because we have to get that done after this lockdown thingy. Please come early tomorrow so that if you have a problem, I'm able to fix it for you. If you can click on registered user, try that. Only use the guest entry if you are having a problem. But if you're having a problem, text me. I send it out to the email. Now the schedule is the same as the schedule on our website. If you click on the schedule, sweetheart, please click on schedule in there. It's the same thing. It's also on your email. I already sent it there, complete details. Also, if you can copy and paste this on your screen, please, sweetheart, in big letters, just open a word processing program and paste this. Okay, that's for the mini consultation. And the pre-recording is also in there, supposedly, but let me copy the recording page. But you do need your ID and password to view the recording. It's already been up to date. You can already view it after this. So you cannot view it right now because we're still on it, but you will be able to view it. Oh, it's all together, sweetheart. I'm sorry. And it on PDF. It's all together. Yeah. There you go. And remove R. There you go.
Okay. So this is the link for the
sure
recording.
where
I
this
can see it.
begins.
Information. Yeah, these information are also on the email I sent you guys. You have to read through that whole thing. Everything is there. Yes.
Okay, let me say a few things because people are. Let me just make this clear. When you go to the meeting room, Avalon Astrology, what is it? Let me just write it down here. AvalonAstrology.AdobeConnect.com VA 2020. This is the address you're at right now. When you go there tomorrow morning, there is a choice of registered user. You click on registered user and you enter your email address as both the username and the password, and it must be in lowercase. So if your email address is abc@go.com, the username is abc@go.com, and the password is also abc@go.com in lowercase. It is case sensitive. If that doesn't work, then you just enter as a guest. We'll get it figured out. Probably most of you are not going to be watching the recordings until after this weekend anyway. We'll get it figured out. Don't worry about it. And, we'll re-enter you in there if we have to. But we'll get it fixed so you can watch the recordings. I think we're all going to be busy this weekend anyway. I don't know how you're going to have time to be watching recordings with everything else going on. So I don't think we need to worry about it. We'll get it figured out by the end of the conference. And
Yes.
I just does that make sense to everybody? Also, thank you, Jacqueline. There's an option to change your password. So when you go in there, you can click on the option to change your password.
Here's
then
a
you
copy
can
of
set
the
it to whatever you
email that I
want.
sent out. If you can just copy paste that as well.
You know, it does the
I
usual thing of
posted it.
emailing you a confirmation. But not to worry, we'll get all that sorted out. Let me say one more thing. Okay, so here is another so this bottom one is the email that Faye sent that has the schedule. But again, if you just go to astrosoftware.com, I want to just make this clear to everybody so nobody has anxiety. You just go to astrosoftware.com, click on conference, click on 2020 conference, go to the schedule, and there it is. Nothing has changed. It's just online. So the whole schedule is here. Saturday morning, 9 to 10:15, Giselle. 45-minute break, then Bill. It's all right here. We're going to have the lunch break and then the next two lectures. And we're going to meet from 7 to 9:30 tomorrow night.
Flip-flop, shorts, tank tops, jogging, anything.
Us,
so you have to dress.
But we're going to have a virtual banquet. We'll just hang out. And if you don't like the food, don't blame us. So, but what we're going to do tomorrow night from 7 to 9:30 is we'll attempt to give you the microphone, and you can just share something and just say, hi, I am Sally, and I live in Seattle, Washington, and I'm just so glad to be here, or anything you want. It's a time for us to just say hi to one another, share something you're excited about, or anything. And also, if you have some special talent related to vibrational astrology, we don't want to go off into a million unrelated things, but sharing a little bit about who you are is wonderful. And we learn to network and find out who's doing what. So I don't know if we'll have 2.5 hours of sharing or not, but it's a time to just stand up and say something. You can be like me and start improvise singing. You can do any weird thing you want to. We're all friends.
Well, if they are, we're going to look at their charts too. So, yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, that sounds good. I know that it is going to be really early for those on the West Coast. With our 9 a.m. That's 6 a.m. West Coast time. But Giselle, that's where she's going to be speaking, so it'll be pretty early for her too. But that's the schedule. That's what we're looking at now. Yes, Linda, I have a T-shirt, so it's pretty awesome. It's really nice. And Faye's going to get that information out. So we'll get some information out on how we can get. Because if not, I'm.
You know what? It's because everything is packed to go to the hotel, so I have to unpack them. So I can't sell them yet. It's packed.
Well,
it was ready to go.
These people can order. We'll try to set something up where people can order. So
we will set it up or send emails.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. Again, tonight, any questions you guys have, think those up. Be prepared. Discussion's good in these, thoughts, just anything. I think we have a Facebook page for the conference, too, that you can go to and share anything there as well. So if you'd like to do that, I'm going to probably check in there and maybe put some stuff up. Me lounging in the pool during the conference and all that kind of stuff. That's what you do at a conference. So, all right.
He has a beautiful home.
So, again, everybody.
Email me the link, Chris, and I will email everybody.
Wonderful.
To FB.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you had an enjoyable time. This has been really good. I know I did. I enjoyed the talk. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow where we really get down to the meat and all the new goodies. So we'll see you all tomorrow morning. Night.
See you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
That's pretty
God